Well, good morning and happy Father's Day. My name's Nate. I get to be the pastor here. As I think about dads and wishing people happy Father's Day, I really think of two groups of people most of all. To those of you who are expectant fathers, this is your first kind of official, unofficial Father's Day. Boy, that is exciting. So good for you guys. I think of y'all today, and I'm very excited and hopeful for y'all. And then I also think of those for whom Father's Day is hard, because while everyone else celebrates their dad, you just miss yours, and that's hard too. So I'm sorry about that, and I'm praying specifically for you today. This is not going to look anything like a Father's Day sermon. As a matter of fact, I would even tell you that this isn't even a sermon, okay? A sermon is designed to teach you the Bible and point you to Jesus, point you to God. That's really what a sermon is. This is more of a message. This is more of just something that as your pastor, I want to communicate to our church. So I would also say this, that this morning is unique. It's different. We're pausing from the series that we've been in. We've been doing a series called One Hit Wonders, and we're taking a break from that this morning, and I have a special message, some things that I want to communicate with you. In light of that, I would tell you that this morning is for the partners of grace. Okay, and if you don't know what that means and why I'm saying partners of grace, it's because at Grace, we like to say that we have partners, not members. Because in membership, there is this attitude of rights and privileges. I'm a member now. What do I get to enjoy? What rights are bestowed upon me? But partnership is a sense of ownership. I'm partnering with this organization. I'm taking ownership of the success of this place. What can I do? How can I ply my hand to move it forward? So we say at Grace that members tend to consume and partners tend to contribute. So we have partners, not members. And so this morning is for the partners of grace, which means that if you're here, your dad drug you here, you're visiting, you've been kicking the tires, you've been watching online, you wouldn't yet call Grace home, then I have good news for you. You picked a great Sunday, because this doesn't apply to you. You don't have to do any of the stuff that I say, all right? You feel no guilt, you feel no shame, you feel no sense of compulsion. You don't have to worry about it. You just kind of sit back and take it in. And you also kind of get a peek behind the curtain to decide if this is the kind of place that you want to be involved with. So please know, if you don't call Grace home, if you don't consider yourself a partner of Grace, and if you're thinking to yourself, gosh, am I a partner? Listen, I always say a partner is what a partner does. All right, so I don't know about official classes and things and anointed and stuff. If you act like a partner, you're a partner. So if you consider yourself one, you are. If you don't, then you're not, okay? Now, if you're not, just take it in, okay? The things that I'm about to say, I'm not saying to try to compel you to do anything. You just enjoy it. For the partners of grace, I wanted to take a Sunday and talk to specifically you, whether you're here in person, whether you're watching online, or you catch up later this week, because there's just some things that have been on my heart, and I've been thinking through, gosh, how do I address those things? How do I share with the church about those things? And as I began to think and pray through that, I had a couple key conversations that kind of, they didn't intend to do it, but it pointed me in this direction, and I thought, I just want to take a Sunday and talk to the partners of grace. Kind of a State of the Union address, as it were, like a state of grace. Carly did a great job throwing that together last minute. Good job, Carly. And really, my desire to talk to you guys this morning as partners comes from this question that I get all the time. I get this question from people who love Grace. Ask me this question all the time. Whenever we get one-on-one time in the lobby, or I see you through the week, or we hang out, or whatever it is, at some point or another, people who care about Grace always lean in and they ask me this question: how's Grace doing? How's Grace doing? That's what they want to know. A lot of you guys have asked me that. How we doing? How's it looking on Sunday morning? What's it like in there? How's Grace? And it's a fair question, right? Because here's the thing, nobody really knows. We've been in a pandemic for 18 months. We were at this all-time high in February 2020, and then we just stopped meeting for 15 months, right? And listen, nobody knows how Grace is doing. I make the joke with other pastors, I've heard them say it too, I have no idea who goes to my church. I have no clue. I think of people every week that I haven't seen in 16 months. And I'm like, gosh, I don't think I've seen them at all. And I'll ask after them. I'll ask Erin. Erin's our children's pastor. She knows everything about everybody in the whole church. So I usually ask Erin, does so-and-so still go here? Oh, yeah, they're good. I was talking to them last week. They're still engaged. They just haven't come back yet for, X, Y, Z, and there's all kinds of good reasons out there, and that's fine. But it's good for me to know that they still call Grace home. But the reality is, it's a fair question because it's difficult to know how is the church doing. So I wanted to let you know that we're doing pretty darn good. Grace is doing pretty well. I'm pretty proud of us. This last 16 months has been hard, man. It's been hard on a church. It's been hard on pastors. But it hasn't been as hard on this pastor because you guys are great. I think maybe the thing I might be most proud of about our little church is the unity that we've displayed in this last year. We've faced a pandemic together. We faced COVID together. And you guys were keeping up with it with all those addresses I did. I'll do little videos in my office and send it out to the church. Hey, here's how we're going to handle this. It'll hearten you to know that I have friends who don't go to the church that I used to work with at my other church who now make fun of me for those videos. Every time I send out a video, it shows up on their Facebook feed, and I get texts with them making fun of me for them. So that's a thing that's going on in my life. So I've sent out a lot of those. I'd like to be done so my friends will quit making fun of me. But in every one of those videos, when I have to say, hey, we're going to come back in person. Hey, these are going to be, this is the caution that we're going to observe in the room. Hey, we still need to wear masks. Some people need to, some people don't. Hey, this is how we're going to sit. This is how it's going to be. I've known with every video, the elders have known with every decision that we've made that there's going to be some people who aren't happy with it and some people who are. And to watch a church full of people who at some point or another in this last year have been unhappy with one of those decisions, still come here and still call Grace home and still love this place and still believe in what God is doing here and still trusting us, that's pretty great. We're a pretty darn unified church in a time when it would be really easy to start being a fragmented church. And it's not just COVID, right? During the pandemic, for whatever reason, it felt like things came to a head politically, and our country is more divided and entrenched politically than it's ever been. We've walked through that with people on both sides of the aisle in unity. Racial reconciliation was thrust into the forefront of the national conversation in a way that I would argue it hasn't been since the 60s. And yet we remain strong. We've been unified this last year as a church, and it heartens me, and I think is maybe the most important thing that we could say about ourselves, that we still love Jesus, we still love each other, and we still love this place. I've been heartened to see momentum building on Sunday mornings. Every week, a few more people come back. Every week, I meet some new people who have been watching us online, who have come back again. Every week, I get here. I get here really early in the morning, earlier than I should because I don't want to mess up my sermons. I get here, and then I sit in my office, and I kind of slowly watch the parking lot fill up. And who's going to come this week? Who do I get to see? Whose neck do I get to hug? I got to see Miss Ginger Gentry this morning. She came back. Oh, my gosh. It was so great. And I wonder at what's going to happen, right? And every week it feels like a little bit of momentum gets picked up, and every week the room feels like it's getting a little bit more full, even here in the middle of the summer. And I think that we could be doing better about that. I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, but every week I feel a little bit of sense of grace kind of coming back to life. And if we think about coming back to normal, I don't think we're going to see February 2020 for a long time, and I'm not worried about it. February 2020 was an all-time high for Grace Raleigh, and then we stopped meeting. Okay, so I'm not worried about that. I'm excited to see what the new normal is going to be, and I think we're going to see it in September. I think what we have in September is what we're going to be, just so you guys know where my thinking is on that. But I've been kind of anxious to see Grace kind of come back to life. We're doing incredible in our kids' ministry. Our rooms are full. I don't know if you know this. Our kids' ministry rooms, they're full every week. When we had to take out chairs to meet and be able to socially distance, we took a room up in there with all the chairs. And about a month ago, Erin came to me and she was like, yo, you got to get your chairs out of my room. Like, they got to get out of there. I need space. I need this room. Our children's space is filled up every week. Our small groups have continued to grow. Our small groups have continued to meet and graft in new people. We've actually added to our small groups rather than detracting from them in a time when we can't even meet together for a large period of time. Many of you know that right as we went into the pandemic that we did a campaign because we believe that it's time for Grace to go home. We believe that it's time for Grace to have permanent roots in the community that we love so much. And so we pledged $1.5 million to that end. And in a year, when we didn't even need a building, we've raised nearly $1 million already for a building that we think that we will need one day. I think that's amazing. And we haven't even talked about it. The chair of the campaign committee emailed the elders and said, just keep doing the nothing that you're doing because it seems to be working really well. And we have. I think we're going to crest $1 million in September, thereabouts, and we'll let the church know about that, and we'll make this final push to February when the campaign will officially be over. But all those things are going well. And I think that the pandemic has been hard on every church in the country. And the pastors that I talk to, it's a struggle. But I think for us, for Grace, we're doing very well as a church. I also think that there's some areas of the church that need our attention. I think there's some areas of the church that our partners need to focus on. And I want to talk to you about those areas. I think we've got some work to do, some parts that are maybe broken down a little, and I think it's time to get to work and to fix them. To talk about those areas, I want to share with you a ministry principle that I learned years ago. I learned this, I don't know where, but somewhere back in church world, somebody taught this to me, and it stuck with me, and so I'm going to teach it to you. If you have a Bible, you can turn to Luke chapter 5. We're going to look at verses 1 through 6. This little interaction, we're going to focus in on one part of it and kind of use that for the ministry principle that is going to apply to the whole church today. But we find it in Luke chapter 5. Steve is going to be mad at me. I'm reading out of the King James Version. You're going to see the English Standard Version on the screen, so it's not going to make much sense. But this is my dad's Bible. I keep it in my office, and I thought it'd be pretty good to preach out of my dad's Bible on Father's Day because I love that guy. So bear with me. If you're mad about this, shove it. All right. I didn't mean that for Steve. Steve, I love you. I don't know where you are. I didn't mean that for you. Oh, no. All right. Luke 5. And it came to pass that as the people pressed upon him to hear the word of God, he stood by the lake of Gennesaret and saw two ships standing by the lake, but the fishermen were gone out of them and were washing their nets. And he entered into one of the ships, which was Simon's, and he prayed with him that he would thrust out a little from the land, and he sat down and taught the people out of the ship. Now when he had left speaking, he said unto Simon, launch out into the deep, and let down your nets for a draught. And Simon answered, said unto him, Master, we have toiled all night, and have taken nothing. Nevertheless, at thy word, I will let down the net. And when they had done this, they enclosed a great multitude of fish, and their nets began to break. Jesus is teaching on the coast of a lake, and the people are pressing on him, so much so that he's kind of like backing into the water just to get some space. So he looks and he sees two boats, and he sees the fishermen, the owners of the boats, washing their nets. And he asks them, can we get in this boat, and can you push off a little bit so I can get some space? And then he finishes teaching, and then he says, hey, go throw your nets out there. There's going to be a big catch. And Simon, we know him as Peter, says we've been toiling all night long. We've been out there all night. Like we're done. We just did the night shift. We're finished up. And Jesus says, no, go ahead and throw them in the water again. And Simon Peter says, all right, fine. And he goes and he throws his net back into the same place where they've been fishing all along, catching nothing for hours on end, and then all of a sudden their nets are filled so full that they begin to break, and they have to call over, if you read the verses following, they have to call over some other guys in the boats and say, can you help us with this catch? Now what I want us to focus on in this story is this principle that was taught to me years ago, that when Jesus looks at Simon Peter, who is later to become a disciple, when Jesus looks at the disciples for the first time, they're washing their nets. This is a thing that fishermen have to do. Another way to think about this is mending the nets, because when you go fish for a night, you get debris in the nets. You get stuff in there that could cut the nets. You get stuff in there that could clog it. You get things in there that could tangle it up. So you've got to do the tedious work. Can you imagine how annoying it would be to take a net that's been used over and over again all night long, a huge fishing net, and spread it out and tediously undo all the knots? And tediously mend it, grab new thread and reattach it and weave it back in there and care for these nets and wash them and get them ready for the next time. But listen, what those fishermen knew was if they don't mend the nets, if they don't prep them, they won't be ready for the catch. So from this, I've learned the ministry principle that we have to mend the nets to prepare for the movement of God. I've known as a pastor that if we're going to prepare for the movement of God, we have to mend the nets. We've got to get ready for the catch. This is actually a biblical principle. There's a verse I have highlighted in the Old Testament that says, I am the axe and God is the one who hews me. And so I have a note in my Bible, stay sharp. Be ready. We don't know when the Father is going to pick us up to use us for his will, but let's be ready when he does. Simon Peter had no idea that Jesus was about to tell him to cast his nets out and have the biggest catch of his fishing career. He didn't know that was about to come, yet he was still tediously preparing the nets for the catch. And so what I know about ministry and about church is if we want to be ready for the work of the Lord, for God's movement, then we have to mend our nets and prepare for the catch. The first time I really felt this impressed upon me, it was a principle I've been familiar with for years, but the first time I really felt like God pressed this on me was actually in this room. In the summer of 2017, I got here in April of that year. In the summer of 2017, I was in this room during the day and I was praying. As I'm known to do on occasion. And I was just pacing around and praying for the church. And I felt God impress upon me. I'm not going to say speak to me. I'm not a God speaks to me guy. I get scared when people start claiming this, just as a disclaimer. But as clearly as I've ever heard God in my life, I felt him say, mend the nets. Mend the nets. Get ready. There's a catch coming. Get things in order. Which was a tall task. So at the time, if you were here, you know, we didn't have a staff. We didn't have a reliable microphone that I could preach from for an entire sermon. It used to cut out all the time. I literally yelled my first Christmas sermon ever at you guys because my mic cut out halfway through it. We didn't know if our songs were going to work. I didn't know if ProPresenter was going to pull up on the computer. All of our ministries were in disarray. There was a lot of net mending to do. And it didn't seem like at the time we were a church of like 100, and it really didn't feel like anything big was about to happen, but I felt like God impressed upon me, hey, mend the nets, get ready. And I can tell you that he told us to do that because he had a catch prepared for grace. The first time I stepped foot in this room was in February of 2017. I was being interviewed to be the senior pastor. There was 96 souls in this room. Remember, I counted twice. In February of 2020, the last time we were normal, we averaged 335 people in this room every Sunday. That doesn't count the record number of about 45 kids a week that we were running. God brought a catch. He had us mend the nets for the reason. Now, I'm not the only one that was working to mend the nets. I was just the only one who was using that phrasing in my head to get ready for what God was going to bring. And so now as we sit here in 2021, I feel the Lord pressing upon us again that we need to mend the nets, that we need to get ready, that we need to prepare for the catch that he is about to bring us. Except this time, I don't want to be the only one that's thinking about it. This time, I don't want to be the only one that's using that language. I want our partners to use that language too and let us build the nets together. I think right now in 2021, we need a church full of net menders. We need a church full of partners to work alongside and to get ready for what God is about to do. Why do I feel like God's about to do something here? First of all, I think we're incredibly strong as a church. I think that we're doing incredibly well coming out of a pandemic. I'm very proud of Grace. I'm not lying to you or exaggerating to you when I tell you that every week that we meet in person, I meet somebody who is here for the first time. I meet somebody, I have a conversation that goes something like this. I see a face I don't recognize in the lobby or in one of the seats because visitors always come in early, so I can kind of be in here and say hey to them. They don't have anything else to do. And I'll walk up to them. Hey, I'm Nate. It's nice to meet you. And they say, yeah, we know. We've been watching you online. It happens every week. Every week, new people come. Every week, you're inviting your friends as things open up again. Every week, God brings us more families. I don't know if you know this, but on Mother's Day, we did a child dedication. It had been a year since we did one, so it was a lot. We dedicated 8 children that day from 9 different families. Now, some of y'all might not know this, but before we were Grace Raleigh, we were Grace Community Church. In December of 2017, we changed our name to Grace Raleigh. And do you know that of the 9 families that dedicated children on Mother's Day of this year, 8 of them have only ever attended Grace Raleigh. 8 of them God has brought to us in the last 4 years. We are growing like crazy in that area of the church. God is doing a thing. And we've got a group of 20-somethings. They're about to start getting pregnant too, and they're going to just add to the trouble. When we go back to normal, when things open back up, I think there's a chance we might have to go to 2 services in the fall. I think people are ready and chomping at the bit. I think people are ready to start meeting in person with their small groups again. You can feel our culture just yearning for normal, and I think a big part of that is church. So I think God's about to do big things here. Even more than that, just the reality of this is long-term thinking. But while we're here, we already have $1 million in the bank ready to buy a building when God presents an opportunity. When we set down permanent roots, when we have a place, when we have a building, that's going to bring some people. That's going to bring some tire kickers. Y'all are going to get excited about Grace and be willing to put up with my sermons again and start inviting your friends to this thing that's happening. We need to get ready, guys. Somebody was asking me, a dear friend of mine who's a partner here, we went out to lunch and he just kind of said, hey, what's the vision of Grace right now? Like it kind of feels like we just kind of go week to week. We're just kind of, going along, maybe hoping for normal again. Like what's the vision of Grace? Like what are we doing? And I thought about it for a while. And I thought, gosh, I'm not floating along. The staff's not floating along. The elders, maybe. But the rest of us, we're not floating along. I felt like I'm doing everything I can. I'm fighting and scratching and clawing for this place. Every week I want to see who comes. Every week when somebody does come, I wonder, are they going to come back consistently or are they just dipping their toe in and then we'll see you in a month? I wonder, when is this place going to come alive again? Every week I'm trying to preach my little heart out to bring people back, to give you something worth showing up to. Every week Steve's doing the best he can to lead us in worship with who shows up in the room. And so I feel like we're fighting like crazy for this place, but it makes sense to me that someone who comes on a weekly basis might not know that because I don't tell you. So I'm telling you, let's mend the nets. Let's get ready. So it makes sense to ask, what does a net mender do? All right, Nate, I'm in, fine. What are you asking of me? How do we mend nets? Well, the first thing we do is we prioritize Sunday morning attendance. We prioritize coming to church on Sunday. Now, this is honestly a thing I never wanted to preach about as a pastor. Because when I wasn't the senior pastor, I always thought it was real self-serving for the senior pastor to do the sermon where he guilts you into Sunday morning attendance. And I never really appreciated it. And so I've intentionally gone in the other direction. Even at times, making fun of the idea of coming to church on Sunday. I think it's possible that I've made the joke that if I didn't get paid to be here on a holiday weekend, I wouldn't be here either. But what I'm coming to realize is that I've really misled you in our attitude towards Sunday morning attendance. I've always had the attitude about people coming on Sunday that we, the staff, and the volunteers that make up the Sunday morning, we're going to do the best job we can to make it worth it for you to come here on Sunday. We're going to do the best job we can so that when you come on Sunday, you go home and you go, I'm glad I came. And my thought is, if we don't do that for you, then you're not going to come. So what's the point of trying to guilt you if you're not getting anything out of it anyways? And I still believe that that's true, and I still believe that the onus is on us to make it worth it, to get the family up and to come and to be a part of church. But I've also noticed this about our thinking about attendance, and this is really what I want to mention to you guys. I think it's really easy to think about the decision of whether or not to attend church isolated, as if it only affects you or your family. Do you want to go to church this Sunday? I don't know, I'm kind of tired. It just affects us, right? It just affects me. It doesn't really have any impact on anybody else. It's just a question for me. And I think that the pandemic and online church for a while has only exacerbated that mindset. Because now it's become a thing that I can take, I can watch online. I can take part in it in church at the beach. And I'm still good. I'm still doing my Jesus thing. I'm still participating. I'm watching. I'm listening later in the week. And that's good. That's better than nothing. But I think increasingly the decision to attend church has become one that we believe is about ourselves and whether or not I want to consume the product that's being presented to me on Sunday morning. That sounds like member talking, doesn't it? Sounds like a consumer mindset. And that's hard for me to say because that's not what I do. If you've been here since I got here, you've been here with me for 4 years. I never talk down to the church. I never set myself up as moral exemplar. I never bring conviction on a Sunday morning that I don't sit in with you. So my part in this is how I've perpetuated the mindset about attendance, and I'm sorry for that. But I do believe that I have seen a more consumeristic approach to whether or not we're going to attend church on Sunday morning, if it fits into my schedule, if I'm not doing anything else, if we're not busy, if the kids aren't crazy, believing that that decision only affects you. But what I would impress upon you this morning is that no, it doesn't. The way that I want us to begin to think about church attendance is just with the layer of thinking. This is all I'm asking from you. You're not asking you to cancel trips and make any new commitments. I'm just asking you to think about attendance in this way. Understand that your decision about whether or not to come to church on a Sunday morning impacts the whole church. It impacts everyone. It's not just about us and our families. And you know this to be true intuitively, right? When you show up on a Sunday morning and it's full in here, whoa, look at this. People commenting out in the lobby. Well, you really brought them in today. You really packed it out. People are excited. You know that you get excited when people are in the room. You know you get excited when there's energy in this room. You know, if you were here when we went to 2 services, you know that the hardest part about going to 2 services is sitting in here with the other 35 people in the 11 o'clock service. That stinks, man. Ain't nobody want to do that. And I know that people are curious about this. I know that people online want to know how many people in the room. How's it feel in there? I got comments that people who, when we first started coming back in person, that people would appreciate when the camera person would kind of pan back so they could see, are my friends there? Who's there? Who's in the room? How much energy? What's going on in there? And there was some Sundays when I would go to that camera person, I would say, hey, listen, we don't need to pan back today, okay? We'll just keep this, just we 25, okay? Just stay nice and tight, just zoomed. You know that when we attend, it adds energy to this place. That's important as we seek to rebuild, as we seek to mend nets. You know, if you've brought a friend, if you've invited a couple or a family to come with you, and they show up and the energy's a little dead, you die a little bit on the inside. That's hard for you because you invite people here because you're proud of this place. And then when this place doesn't show up, that's a disservice to you and your friend. When we worship together, tell me that worship isn't better when this room isn't full. It is full. Tell me it's not better when we sing and we raise our voices together. Tell me worship in this room isn't better with 200 than it is with 40. There's something to it. There's something to the energy of a church. There's something to looking across the room, and maybe I don't even talk to them this week, but I see them and they're here, and they're committed and we're committed. And as we come back out of the woodwork to see those faces again and again and know that they're committed to this place like you're committed to this place, that's heartening. That's good. Your attendance, even passively, matters to the whole church. It's not just a you decision. And how many conversations do we miss out on? Just a few weeks ago, I had another one of those conversations. A woman walked in. She looked at me. I looked at her. I knew that she knew me. I knew I didn't know her. And she said she'd been watching me online, and she was ready to come back. And she was here, and she wanted to be involved in Stephen ministry. And I said, that's great. The guy who leads it, Bill Reith, is right over there. Let me introduce you. And I got them hooked up. What if Bill just decided that day that his attendance was only about him? Maybe she connects via email. Maybe she doesn't. Every week, people come in. I was just talking to a couple this morning. They came in. They're wanting to join a small group. Well, what if I had a small group for them to join, and I thought, oh, so-and-so would be great for them to talk to, and then so-and-so wasn't here? Our decision to come to church impacts the whole church every week. It's a big deal. It adds to the energy in the room. It adds to the sense of camaraderie and commitment from one another. It allows us to these introductions to people's friends, to people that might get plugged in with us. One of the best things in the world, I love it so much, is you cannot, I'm looking at you guys right here, you cannot drop your kids off on that hallway without them inviting you to their small group. You just can't do it. What if they just decide this week's not the week? And we miss a chance to connect some people. Our attendance doesn't just impact us. I want you to think of it as something that impacts the whole church. Moving forward, it's important. The other way we mend nets is to serve on service teams. The other way we mend nets is to volunteer in the church. Now, here's a reality across every church in the country. All their service teams are broken down. None of them have as many people as they used to. I talked to Phil Leverett, our head usher. Sometimes he lets that title go to his head. He's got quite the ego, and it's difficult to deal with. But he does a good job, nevertheless. And I said, hey, we want to go back to full capacity. We want to get your ushers together. We want to start handing out the notes again and things like that. And I said, how's your team, by the way? And he goes, well, I used to have 10 people every week, and now I have 4. And 2 of them are me and Doug Funk. So he's got 2, okay? We need people across the board. We need people to serve on service teams. And as we've come back to church, we might not resume into the same role that we had. We might not have had a role previously when last time we were normal. And so we might not feel an impetus to serve again. But I'm telling you, as your pastor, all of our teams are broken down. We need more people. We need help. So what I'm asking is, if you're coming to church, serve. If you're attending on a Sunday morning regularly and you're a partner of grace, be a partner. Serve somewhere. And listen, if you're watching online this morning and you are increasingly angry at me because you're like, Nate, I don't feel comfortable coming back. Leave me alone. I get it. And I would never try to convince you to come back before you're comfortable doing it, ever. But what I would say is, when you do come back, be ready to get to work. Because that's what I'm asking of everyone here too. If you're coming on Sunday, serve. in some capacity. Because our teams are broken down and people need your help. I talked earlier about the idea of mending a net. Can you imagine how tedious it would be to mend a whole net by yourself? Listen, we have some people who since August of last year have just been slowly but surely washing their net, waiting for other people to come alongside them and help them out. I think of Cindy Hayes back there. I know I'm going to embarrass her, but Cindy runs sound back there. You have this sheet in your seat. It's got urgent needs. There and there. Those are the urgent needs. When Cindy's not there, she's over there with the kids every week, doing her part, just slowly mending the nets, waiting for some people to come alongside and help her. We got other people like Keith. Keith is back there running the feed right now. He helped us set up the live stream. If we didn't have Keith in the summer, you guys would have been watching stuff recorded on YouTube for the duration of the pandemic. We have some faithful people who sit over there and they hold fussy pandemic babies all morning. And they do it week after week. We have the Phil Leveretts of the world who shows up every Sunday to help fill in the gaps. We have Doug Funk who continues to show up and do what he can. I could go on and on and on. We've got some folks in the church who have been mending some nets, but I'm telling you that they need help. So you've got these sheets in your seat. I want us all to take a look at them. Oh, and I'm supposed to say, together let's mend our nets and get ready for all that God is doing and will do at Grace. But really, let's do that. It's not pastor talk about what I believe is coming. And it's not pastor talk about what our needs are. We need your help. To give you an idea of how badly we need your help, I asked Erin, last time it was normal, how many regular volunteers did you have in children's ministry? And she said, I had 55 people who were regularly a part of children's ministry. Not 55 people on the roster, because there's always people on the roster who are there, they exist on the roster, but they haven't done anything in like 6 weeks. So in a 2-month period leading into the pandemic, 55 different people served. And I said, how many people have served who are not on staff in the last month? 18. And some of those are repeats, and they're doing it every week. Some of those are elders. Some of those are elders that when we went to 2 services, I looked at the elders and I said, this puts a lot of stress on Aaron and the children's ministry, so I'm asking the elders to all volunteer to do this for a Sunday at least. Some of those are Band-Aids. We need incredible help in the kids' ministry. And I know what you're thinking. Why don't their parents volunteer? They do. They do. And also, their parents live with 3 children under 5. All right, so let's give them a break. Or go babysit at their house. And then they'll come here and they'll watch the rest of the kids. They do volunteer. No, it's not an option. It's not really going to happen. And we have folks from an older generation that volunteer, but that number is getting smaller and smaller. So we need you to volunteer with the kids. We need people on the tech team. We need people to work back there in the sound booth. Those are very urgent needs. Every week I have conversations with Steve and Aaron about what can we do to find more help. They've done all the shoulder tapping they know how to do, so I'm just telling you corporately, we need help in those places. If those places feel like they just don't make sense for you right now, we need other things too. And those are under the other opportunities. We need you to serve there as well. But I would also tell you, this isn't just a plea to mend the nets of grace, which we need to do. We need to get ready for what God is going to bring us. And I really do think that starts by committing to Sunday morning attendance and changing the way we think about it. And it starts by serving on a team and helping move this thing forward every Sunday morning. But I would also tell you that Jesus is found in service. there's a part of Jesus that is found in his work that you will never find anywhere else. You can read all the Bible passages you want to. You can go to all the small groups you want to. You can have all the good conversations you want to. You can worship him all you want. But there is a part of Jesus that cannot be found outside of his service. And I could tell you story after story of just people on our elder board who their catalyst in faith was taking a small step to serve on Sunday morning. So if you do this, you won't just help mend our nets and get ready for what's next at Grace, but you will also, I believe, find Jesus in that service. So we're going to do this. In a few minutes, I'm going to pray. Steve and the band are going to come up, and they're going to play through a song. During that song, we're going to ask you guys to stay seated and just kind of prayerfully go over this and consider being a net mender with us. Fill it out. And at the end of the service, when everyone's dismissed, there's offering boxes as you leave. You can fold these up and put those in there. If space runs out in the offering box for some reason, just hand them to me or anybody else on staff, and we'll get it figured out. But I would really love for you to take a minute. If you're a partner, if you're committed to coming, pray through this sheet, fill it out, and let's mend the nets together. Can we do that? Let me pray for us. Father, you are a good Father. For those who are on the precipice of knowing what it is to be one of those, God, I just pray for so much joy and happiness and peace for them. For those for whom this day is difficult because they miss their dad, they would give anything just to spend a little bit more time with them. God, I pray that you would just nurture their spirit today in a way that only you can. Father, we are also so grateful for how you've brought us through this difficult time in our country and in our culture. We're grateful that we have a church at all to go to and that you have shepherded us so well and that we do feel so strong right now. But God, I also pray that we as partners, as people of Grace, would take ownership of what you are doing here and that we would do our part to get this place ready for what you're doing next. And I pray that in doing that part, we would find you. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen.